He almost walked past the woman with the mop until he saw the shoes and his whole world stopped. Nathan Whitaker, a wealthy construction CEO, had stepped into the Grand Harbor Hotel expecting another polished dinner, another quiet evening, another room full of people who knew his name. But then he saw her. A pregnant maid? 9 months along. One hand pressed against her, aching back the other, pushing a mop across the shining marble floor. At first Nathan barely noticed her face. He noticed the shoes. Worn down at the inner heel. The left one worse than the right. His breath caught. He knew those shoes. His briefcase slipped from his hand and slammed onto the floor. The sound echoed through the lobby, but Nathan did not move. The woman kept mopping, slow and careful, like every step cost her something. Then the ceiling light flickered. She turned. And Nathan saw Grace Miller. His missing wife. Alive. Pregnant. Working as a maid. For 8 months Grace had been gone, without a note, without a call, without a goodbye that made sense. Nathan had searched, blamed, buried himself in work, and told himself he was done hurting. But now she stood 10 feet away from him, thinner than before, exhausted, wearing a red cleaning uniform, like life had stripped everything else from her. Grace looked up. Their eyes met. No one spoke. No one moved. And in that frozen second, Nathan understood one terrible truth. She had not simply disappeared. Something had driven her away. For 8 months Grace Miller had been a ghost in Nathan Whitaker's life. Not dead. Not alive. Just gone. And that was the part that had almost destroyed him. There had been no warning that morning. No suitcase by the door. No broken glass on the kitchen floor. No screaming match. No final sentence that a man could replay in his head and say, "That was the moment I lost her." Nathan had left the house before sunrise, the way he always did. Dark suit. Black coffee. Phone already buzzing in his hand. Grace had been standing in the kitchen in one of his old sweaters, her hair pulled back, her bare feet tucked against the cold tile. "You'll be late again," she had said. Not angry. Just tired. Nathan remembered that now. He remembered the way she held the coffee mug with both hands. The way she looked at him like she wanted him to stop for 1 minute, just one. But there had been a board call at 7:00. A concrete shipment delayed in Tacoma. A hotel project bleeding money in Denver. So he kissed her forehead. Not her lips. Her forehead. "I'll make it up to you," he said. And then he walked out. By the time he came home that night, Grace was gone. Her wedding ring was not on the dresser. Her clothes were still in the closet. Her favorite paperback was still open on the nightstand, face down, like she had planned to come back and finish the chapter. That was what haunted him most. She had not packed like a woman leaving a marriage. She had vanished like a woman running from danger. At first Nathan thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe she had gone to the store. Maybe her phone had died. Maybe she was with a friend. He called everyone. Her college roommate in Portland, her old coworker in Phoenix. The neighbor who sometimes brought over lemon bread on Sundays. No one had seen her. By midnight his voice had changed. By 20 the morning he was driving the streets himself, headlights cutting through empty roads, calling her name like she might be standing under a street lamp waiting to be found. Grace. Gas stations. Parking lots. Emergency rooms. A bus station with cracked tile and vending machines humming against the wall. Nothing. No one. By morning Nathan had called the police. By noon he had hired a private investigator. By evening his mother, Margaret Whitaker, had arrived at the house in pearls and a cream-colored coat, looking less worried than offended. "She left you," Margaret said. Nathan stood in the foyer, still wearing yesterday's shirt. "You don't know that." "I know women," his mother replied. "And I know that girl was never built for this family." That girl? Even then the words bothered him. But he was too tired to fight. Too scared to think clearly. Too desperate for any explanation that did not end with Grace hurt somewhere, alone somewhere, calling for him somewhere. The first week turned into a blur. Nathan did not sleep in their bedroom. He sat in the living room with every light on his phone in his hand, waiting for a call that never came. Every time the screen lit up his body jumped, every unknown number made his breath stop. But it was never Grace. A detective said there were no signs of forced entry. The investigator found no plane ticket, no hotel booking under her name, no credit card activity. Her bank account sat untouched. Her phone went dead less than an hour after Nathan had left for work that morning. It was as if Grace Miller had stepped out of the world. And the world had closed behind her. Nathan searched anyway. He drove to shelters. He paid for tips. He followed rumors into bad neighborhoods and dead-end motels. Once a woman in a gray hoodie was seen walking near a highway outside Spokane. Nathan drove 4 hours through rain only to find a stranger with the same brown hair. Another time someone claimed Grace had been seen at a diner near Boise. Nathan flew there the same night. He sat in the corner booth until closing, staring at the door every time the bell rang. She never came in. Weeks passed. Then months. The people around him began speaking in softer voices. Not because they knew anything. Because they had accepted what Nathan could not. Grace was gone. Maybe by choice. Maybe forever. His company kept running because Nathan made sure it did. He showed up to meetings, he signed contracts. He shook hands with city officials and developers who praised his discipline. Strong man, one of them said. Nathan almost laughed. Strong? He had started sleeping 3 hours a night. He had stopped eating dinner at home because the empty chair across from him made him feel like a criminal. He had left Grace's toothbrush in the cup by the sink. He had not moved her robe from the bathroom hook. Once in the middle of a construction site inspection he saw a woman in a blue scarf turn a corner. His heart slammed so hard he nearly dropped his hard hat. He ran after her. It was not Grace. It was never Grace. And somewhere along the way pain turned into anger because anger was easier to carry. He told himself she had left. He told himself she had made a choice. He told himself no one disappeared for 8 months unless they wanted to stay hidden. But deep down in the place where truth sat heavy and quiet, Nathan never believed it. Because Grace was not cruel. She would not leave without a word. She would not let him suffer like that unless something had broken so badly that she thought silence was safer than love. Still, doubt did what doubt always does. It crawled in. It whispered at night. Maybe your mother was right. Maybe Grace never belonged here. Maybe she used you. Maybe you never knew her at all. Margaret fed those thoughts carefully, one small spoonful at a time. You have to move forward, Nathan. She embarrassed you. She abandoned this family. A man in your position cannot look weak forever. Then came Evelyn Hart. Elegant, polished, always dressed like she expected cameras. Margaret introduced her at a charity dinner 3 months after Grace disappeared. Nathan barely spoke to her that night. But Evelyn kept appearing. At fundraisers. At business dinners. At the club where his mother liked to sit by the window and judge everyone who walked in. Evelyn never pushed too hard. That was her skill. She offered sympathy with soft eyes and sharp timing. You deserved better, she told him once. Nathan did not answer. Because the words sounded kind. But they felt wrong. Still, he let life drag him forward. Not because he wanted Evelyn. Not because he had stopped loving Grace. Because grief can make a man tired enough to stand wherever other people place him. And now 8 months later there he was. In the Grand Harbor Hotel. A place of marble floors, gold light and quiet wealth. His mother had arranged the dinner. Evelyn was beside him. And Grace was 10 feet away in a maid's uniform, her hand pressed against the stomach that carried his child. Nathan could not breathe. Everything he had believed cracked open at once. The sleepless nights. The dead phone. The untouched bank account. The fear in her eyes. The way she had not looked surprised to be found. Only afraid. Grace gripped the mop handle like it was the last wall between them. Her face had gone pale under the hotel lights. Her cheeks were thinner, her lips were pressed tight, holding back words or tears or both. Nathan took 1 step toward her. Grace, he whispered. Her name came out broken. She lowered her eyes. Not coldly. Not with anger. With exhaustion. As if hearing him say her name hurt more than she had expected. Evelyn shifted beside him. Her perfume cut through the sharp smell of floor cleaner. Well, Evelyn said softly. 1 word. Smooth as silk. Cold as ice. Grace's fingers tightened on the mop. Nathan saw it. That tiny movement. That little brace before impact. And suddenly, he understood something that made his stomach turn. Grace had not been hiding from the world. She had been hiding from someone close enough to know exactly where to hurt her. Nathan stared at his wife, at the swollen belly, at the uniform, at the worn shoes he remembered from rainy Sunday walks years ago. 8 months. He had spent 8 months asking why she left. Now the question changed. Who made her run? Evelyn Hart did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Women like Evelyn did not shout in hotel lobbies. They did not lose control in public. They smiled with their mouths closed, tilted their heads just enough, and made cruelty sound like conversation. She stepped forward slowly, her gold dress catching the chandelier light with every move. 1 step. Then another. The polished floor reflected her heels like a blade sliding across glass. Grace did not move. She stood beside the mop bucket, 1 hand on the handle, the other resting low against her swollen belly. Her shoulders were stiff. Her face had gone still in that way people get when they know pain is coming and there is nowhere to run. Nathan saw it. He saw her brace for Evelyn before Evelyn even spoke. That made his blood run cold. Well, Evelyn said again, softer this time. Look at you. Grace's eyes stayed on the floor. Nathan turned his head toward Evelyn. Don't. But Evelyn barely glanced at him. Her attention was fixed on Grace. On the red cleaning uniform. On the worn shoes. On the belly. On the bucket of gray water at Grace's side, her lips curved not into a smile but into something smaller. Sharper. I always wondered where you'd end up after you ran away, Evelyn said. I suppose I have my answer now. The hallway seemed to tighten around them. A bellhop stopped near the elevator holding a luggage cart with both hands. 2 hotel guests in evening coats slowed down pretending to look at the wall art. Behind the front desk, a young receptionist froze with her fingers over the keyboard. No one wanted to watch. No one looked away. Grace swallowed. Her throat moved once. She adjusted her grip on the mop handle and pushed it forward a few inches as if she could still finish the job, still pretend this was just another stain on the floor. I'm working, Grace said quietly. Those 2 words were small. But they cost her something? Evelyn laughed under her breath. Working, she repeated. Is that what we're calling this? Nathan stepped between them halfway. Evelyn, that's enough. No, Evelyn said, still calm. I think this is exactly the conversation that should have happened a long time ago. Grace's fingers tightened. Nathan noticed the knuckles whitening. Evelyn noticed too. And she enjoyed it. This suits you, Evelyn said, looking Grace up and down. On your feet all night, cleaning up after people who actually belong here. A sharp silence followed. Not loud. Worse than loud. It spread down the corridor and pressed against every person standing there. Grace did not answer. She only dipped the mop into the bucket, wrung it out and dragged it across the marble in a slow line. The wheels of the bucket squeaked once. The sound was small, almost pathetic. Evelyn smiled wider. Still pretending you don't hear me, she asked. You always did that. Acted innocent. Acted wounded. As if the whole world was being unfair to you. Nathan's jaw tightened. Stop. Evelyn turned to him, then just enough to show him the perfect shape of her face under the hotel lights. Why, she asked. Because I'm saying what everyone else is thinking. No, Nathan said. Because you're being cruel. For the first time, something flickered in Evelyn's eyes. Annoyance. Then calculation. Then the mask returned. She looked back at Grace. Cruel, Evelyn said. Cruel is disappearing from your husband's life for 8 months. Cruel is humiliating a good man. Cruel is showing up pregnant, dressed like this and expecting sympathy. Grace flinched. It was tiny? Almost nothing. But Nathan saw it. The word pregnant had landed like a hand across her face. Grace's palm moved over her stomach. Protective. Instinctive. A mother's motion before thought. Evelyn's eyes dropped to that hand. And her face changed. Something colder entered it. Oh, Evelyn said. So that is real? Grace looked up then. Just for 1 second. Her eyes were tired. Red at the edges. But there was fire buried under the exhaustion. Don't talk about my baby, she said. My baby. Not our baby. Nathan heard it. The word struck him in the chest. Evelyn heard it too, and she leaned into it. Your baby, she repeated. Interesting choice. Nathan's hands curled at his sides. Evelyn. But she kept going. She took another step toward Grace, close enough now that the scent of her perfume mixed with bleach and floor cleaner. You know, Evelyn said, when Margaret told me you had always been unstable, I thought she was exaggerating. Grace's face tightened at the mention of Nathan's mother. Nathan saw that too. Another crack in the wall. Another clue. Evelyn continued, voice smooth as polished stone. But now I see it. Running away. Hiding. Scrubbing floors in a hotel while carrying a child you can barely provide for. It's tragic, really. Grace said nothing. The mop handle shook slightly in her hand. Evelyn lowered her voice. You never understood your place, Grace. That sentence changed the air. Even the receptionist behind the desk looked up fully now. Nathan felt something inside him go still. Evelyn was not simply insulting Grace. She was repeating something. A language Grace already knew. A wound someone had already carved into her. Grace's breathing changed. Barely. But enough. You came into Nathan's life and played house, Evelyn said. You wore the ring. You smiled in photographs. You acted like you belonged at dinner tables you could not even name the silverware for. Grace blinked hard. No tear fell. Not yet. You were never one of them, Evelyn whispered. You were never one of us. Nathan stepped forward. I said enough? Evelyn ignored him. The guests near the elevator stood completely still now. The bellhop's face had gone pale. Somewhere behind them, a phone camera lifted then slowly lowered again when Nathan turned his head. Evelyn's voice dropped lower. You were a placeholder, she said. Temporary? Convenient. A mistake wrapped in a wedding dress. Grace's mouth opened slightly. No words came out. That hit deeper than the rest. Nathan saw it happen. He saw Grace's face fold inward for half a second before she forced it back into place. She had learned how to survive humiliation without giving the other person the satisfaction of seeing her break. But Nathan had loved her once. No. He loved her still. He knew the difference between silence and strength. He knew when silence was bleeding. Evelyn looked at Grace's belly again. And that child, she said softly, will grow up knowing exactly what its mother is. Grace's hand flattened over her stomach. Her whole body went rigid. Nathan moved before he thought. Do not say another word. But Evelyn was already too far gone. She had an audience now. And women like Evelyn lived for rooms where they could wound someone and still look elegant doing it. What Evelyn asked, turning slightly toward him. You want me to pretend this is noble? She ran. She vanished. She let you suffer. And now she's here, with a mop and a stomach full of questions. Grace shut her eyes. Just for a moment. Then pain crossed her face. Not emotional pain. Physical. Sharp. Sudden. Her fingers dug into her belly. The mop handle slipped in her other hand and knocked against the bucket. Dirty water sloshed over the rim and spread across the marble. Nathan saw the color drain from her face. Grace. She did not answer. Her lips parted. She took one breath, then another, shallow and uneven. The hallway blurred around Nathan. The guests. The chandelier. Evelyn. All of it vanished. There was only Grace standing there, 9 months pregnant, trying not to collapse in front of people who had already taken too much from her. Nathan reached for her. Grace pulled back on instinct. Not far. Just enough. But enough to tear something open inside him. She expected pain. From him. From everyone. The realization hit harder than any confession could have. Grace, he said softer now. Look at me. She shook her head once, jaw clenched, waiting for the pain to pass. No one spoke. No one moved. The hotel lobby filled with money and mirrors held its breath. Then Grace exhaled slowly. The wave passed. But her hand stayed on her stomach. Her knuckles were white. Evelyn somehow still did not understand what she had done. Or worse, she did understand and did not care. She smoothed the side of her dress. Well, Evelyn said, perhaps this little performance proves my point. That was the moment Nathan changed. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Something simply locked into place. For 8 months he had been confused. For 8 months he had been angry. For 8 months he had let other people feed him stories about the woman standing in front of him. But now he saw Grace clearly. A pregnant woman in worn shoes. A wife who had disappeared without taking money. A mother protecting her child with one trembling hand. And beside him stood Evelyn Hart, dressed in gold, smiling like cruelty was a birthright. Nathan turned to her fully. His voice came out low. Clean? Final. Enough. Evelyn blinked. For the first time that night she looked uncertain. Nathan, she said, softening instantly. I'm only being honest. No, he said. You're being vicious. Her eyes sharpened. She abandoned you? Nathan took one step closer. You don't know what happened. She left you, Evelyn snapped, the mask slipping. She humiliated you. And now she appears like this, expecting you to rescue her. Grace stared at the floor. Nathan did not take his eyes off Evelyn. She is my wife, he said. The words rang down the corridor. Grace looked up. Slowly. As if she did not trust what she had heard. Evelyn's mouth tightened. She was your wife, she said. Nathan's face hardened. She is my wife. A long silence followed. Something in Evelyn cracked then. Not completely. Just enough for the ugliness underneath to show. You'll regret this, she said. When she breaks you again, don't expect me to stand there and watch. Nathan's voice did not rise. You were never standing with me. Evelyn stared at him. The lobby had gone silent enough to hear the soft hum of the lights overhead. Then Evelyn stepped back, gathering herself piece by piece. She lifted her chin, adjusted her bracelet, smoothed her hair. The perfect woman returned. But Nathan had seen what was underneath. And Grace had seen him see it. Evelyn turned and walked away, heels striking the marble in sharp, angry clicks. No apology. No shame. No looking back. When the elevator doors opened, she stepped inside without turning around. The doors closed. And the sound disappeared. Nathan turned back to Grace. She was still standing beside the mop bucket, one hand on her stomach, the other gripping the handle like it was holding her upright. Her face was wet now. One tear had escaped. Then another. She wiped them away fast, almost harshly, as if she hated herself for letting them fall. Nathan took a careful step toward her. Grace, he said. She shook her head. Don't. The word was barely a whisper. But it stopped him cold. He had spent 8 months wanting answers. Now he understood he was not entitled to them. Not yet. Not after what she had survived. Not after what he had failed to see. Nathan stood in the silence, Evelyn left behind. The elevator doors had closed. The lobby noise slowly returned. A cart rolling over tile. A glass clinking at the bar. A woman whispering near the front desk. But for Nathan, the whole hotel had gone quiet except for one sound. Grace's breathing. Short, controlled, careful. Like even the air had to ask permission before entering her body. She turned away from him and grabbed the mop again. Her face was pale, her jaw tight, her eyes fixed on the wet streak across the marble floor. She pushed the mop forward once. Then again. Slow. Mechanical. Like if she kept working, none of this would be real. Nathan watched her hand. It was trembling. Not from weakness alone. From fear. "Grace," he said gently. She did not look at him. "I said don't." Her voice was low, but it carried a sharp edge. Not anger. Not exactly. Protection. Nathan knew the difference now. He took half a step closer, then stopped. He remembered the way she had pulled back when he reached for her. That quick flinch. That instinctive recoil. It had lasted less than a second, but it had opened a door in his mind he could not close. Grace had expected his hand to hurt. His hand. The same hand that once brushed snow from her hair outside a movie theater in February. The same hand she had held when they signed their marriage license. The same hand she had placed over her stomach once long ago when they joked about someday having a house full of children. Now that hand frightened her. Nathan felt sick. "You're not okay," he said. "I'm fine." The words came too fast. Too practiced. Too empty. He had heard people say that before. Workers on job sites after injuries. Men with blood on their sleeves telling him they could keep going. Contractors trying to hide a mistake. People who were one breath away from falling apart. Grace said it like a woman who had learned that needing help was dangerous. Nathan lowered his voice. "You had pain. It passed. You're 9 months pregnant. I know how pregnant I am." That sentence struck harder than it should have. It was not loud, it was not dramatic. But it carried 8 months of sleeping alone, working alone, carrying a child alone. Nathan swallowed. A hotel manager appeared at the far end of the hall, nervous and stiff in a black suit. His name tag read Mr. Lawson. He looked from Nathan to Grace, then to the spill on the marble. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. Grace straightened immediately. Too quickly. Her face changed. The pain vanished behind a worker's mask. Her shoulders pulled back. Her eyes dropped. Her hands moved to the mop handle like she had been caught stealing instead of nearly collapsing. "No sir," she said. "I'm cleaning it now." Nathan turned to the manager. "She needs to sit down." Grace's head snapped toward him. "No." It was one word. But it was full of panic. Mr. Lawson frowned. "Grace, are you unable to complete your shift?" There it was. Not concern. A warning. Nathan heard it. Grace heard it first. "I can finish," she said quickly. "I just need a minute." The manager's eyes moved to Nathan. Recognition flashed across his face. Nathan Whitaker was the kind of man hotels remembered. Big contracts. Private dining rooms. Tips large enough to be repeated in staff meetings. Mr. Lawson softened his tone for Nathan, not for Grace. "Mr. Whitaker, perhaps we can move this conversation somewhere more private." Grace lowered her gaze again. Nathan saw her shrink. Not physically. Something inside her folded inward. She was standing between a powerful man who had once been her husband and a manager who controlled whether she could pay rent. In that moment, she had no safe place to stand. Nathan hated himself for not seeing it sooner. "Grace," he said carefully, "please sit down." She shook her head. "I need this job. I'll handle that." Her eyes lifted. For the first time, anger cut through the fear. "No," she said. "You won't." Nathan went still. Grace's voice shook, but she kept speaking. "You don't get to walk in here, see me like this and start handling things. You don't get to throw money at the floor and call it rescue." "I didn't mean." "Yes, you did." She laughed once, hollow and tired. "You always mean well, Nathan." That was never the problem. The words hit him in the chest. Because they were true. He had meant well when he worked late to build a better future. He had meant well when he let his mother organize dinners Grace hated. He had meant well when he stayed silent during small insults because he thought silence kept peace. But peace for him had been pain for her. Grace turned toward the service door. "I have to finish." Nathan reached out without thinking. Just 2 fingers? A light touch near her elbow. Grace jerked back so violently the mop handle clattered against the bucket. The sound cracked through the corridor. A few guests turned. Mr. Lawson froze. Nathan's hand dropped instantly. He did not breathe. Grace looked as shocked as he did. Her palm flew to her stomach. Her other hand pressed against the wall to steady herself. Her eyes were wide, not because Nathan had hurt her, but because her body had betrayed a secret she had spent months hiding. That reaction did not come from nowhere. Nathan knew it with terrifying certainty. That was not a wife angry at her husband. That was a woman trained by fear. "Grace," he whispered, "don't look at me like that." "Like what?" "Like you finally see me." He had no answer. Because he did? For the first time all night, maybe for the first time in years, Nathan really saw her. The tiny cuts across her fingers. The red irritation at her wrists from cleaning chemicals. The way her uniform hung loose around her shoulders but stretched tight over her belly. The dark half-moons under her eyes. The swollen ankles and worn shoes. The way she kept one side of her body angled away from everyone as though shielding herself from a blow that had not yet come. His wife had not simply been missing. She had been surviving. And he had been dining in rooms like this one, letting people tell him she was selfish. Nathan felt something cold move through him. Not rage. Not yet. Something worse. Clarity. Mr. Lawson cleared his throat. Grace, perhaps you should take your break. Grace looked at him startled. The manager glanced at Nathan again, then forced a thin smile. 10 minutes. Grace nodded. Thank you, sir. Sir. The words scraped against Nathan's nerves. Grace bent slowly to pick up the fallen mop. She winced. Nathan saw it and stepped forward, then stopped himself before she could flinch again. No sudden movements. No grabbing. No assuming. He had lost the right to be careless with her. Grace pushed the mop and bucket toward the wall. Then she moved toward the service door. Her steps were steady but too slow. Each one looked negotiated with pain. Nathan followed at a distance. Not close enough to trap her. Not far enough to lose her. The service corridor was a different world. The marble ended. The gold light vanished. Back here, the floor was dull gray, scuffed by years of carts and shoes. The air smelled of bleach, old coffee, and wet towels. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A metal shelf leaned against one wall, stacked with folded linens. Somewhere nearby, a dryer thumped in a steady rhythm like a tired heart. Grace stopped beside a narrow staff break room. Inside, 2 plastic chairs sat near a vending machine. A half-empty pot of coffee burned on a hot plate. Someone had taped a handwritten sign above the sink, "Clean up after yourself." Grace lowered herself into a chair with both hands braced on the table. The moment she sat, the mask cracked. Her shoulders dropped. Her eyes closed. Her breath came out in a long shaking line. Nathan stood in the doorway. He wanted to rush to her. He wanted to kneel. He wanted to say every apology at once. But she looked so fragile that even his regret felt too heavy to place on her. So he stayed where he was. "Can I come in?" he asked. Grace opened her eyes. The question seemed to confuse her. As if no one had asked permission in a very long time. After a moment, she nodded once. Nathan stepped inside and kept his hands visible at his sides. Grace noticed. Her expression changed for half a second. Not trust. But recognition. He was trying. That was all he had. "I'm not going to touch you," he said. "Not unless you say I can." Her lips pressed together. She looked away. A tear slid down the side of her face before she could stop it. She wiped it hard with the heel of her hand. "I hate this," she whispered. "What? You seeing me like this?" Nathan looked at her swollen feet. Her burned hands. Her exhausted face. "I hate that I didn't see it sooner." Grace gave a bitter little smile. "You couldn't. You weren't looking." The words were quiet. But they split him open. He pulled out the chair across from her and sat down slowly. The table between them was small, scratched, and stained with old coffee rings. It felt strange that this was where their marriage had ended up. Not in their bedroom. Not in a lawyer's office. Not at some dramatic place with rain hitting the windows. Here. In a hotel staff room under buzzing lights. With a vending machine humming beside them, Nathan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "What happened to you?" Grace stared at her hands. For a long time she said nothing. Then she spoke. Not the full story. Not yet. Just enough to let him feel the edge of it. "You wouldn't have believed me." Nathan's throat tightened. "About what?" She looked at him then. And the fear in her eyes was no longer hidden. It was standing right there between them. "About your mother?" Nathan did not move. The name entered the room like a storm cloud. Margaret Whittaker. His mother. The woman who had always smiled in public and sharpened knives in private. Grace's hand returned to her stomach. "She came to the house after you left for work," Grace said. "That morning?" Nathan's body went cold. "The morning you disappeared." Grace nodded. "And after she left," Grace whispered, "I knew I had to run." Nathan stared at her. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. The coffee burned on the hot plate. Somewhere beyond the wall, guests laughed in a dining room full of candles and wine. But in that little staff room, Nathan felt the first piece of the truth slide into place. Grace had not abandoned him. She had been chased out. Nathan did not speak. For the first time in his life, the silence was not power. It was shock. Grace sat across from him in the staff break room, one hand spread over her stomach, the other resting on the scratch table. Her fingers were still trembling. Not badly. Just enough for Nathan to notice. And now he noticed everything. The way she sat near the edge of the chair ready to stand if she had to. The way her eyes kept flicking toward the door. The way she looked at him like she wanted to believe him but her body refused to take the risk. My mother came to the house, Nathan said slowly. Grace nodded. The morning you disappeared. Another nod. Nathan looked down at the floor. 8 months. 8 months of unanswered calls. 8 months of private investigators. 8 months of anger, grief and shame wrapped together so tightly he could barely breathe. And all this time the beginning of the truth had been inside his own house. What did she say to you? He asked. Grace's lips parted but no sound came out. For a moment she looked 9 months pregnant and 20 years older. Her eyes filled but she blinked the tears back fast like crying was a luxury she could no longer afford. Nathan waited. He did not reach across the table. He did not say, "It's okay." Because it was not okay. Not even close. Grace drew in a slow breath. I had just found out, she said. Her voice was quiet. Thin. But steady enough to cut. Found out what? She looked down at her stomach. Nathan's face changed. The answer came before she said it. The baby, Grace whispered. I found out 1 week before I left. Nathan stopped breathing. The humming vending machine sounded suddenly too loud. The fluorescent light buzzed above them. Somewhere down the corridor, a cart rolled by with a soft metal rattle. But Nathan heard only one thing. The baby. His eyes dropped to her belly. His child? There. Alive. Moving beneath her hand. He had imagined it so many times in another life. Grace standing in their kitchen, smiling through tears. A tiny pair of shoes on the counter. His own stunned laugh. His arms around her. Instead she had learned alone. Carried alone. Worked alone. Suffered alone. Grace, he whispered. She shook her head. Don't. Please don't make that face. What face? Like you're hurt. Nathan flinched. She gave a small bitter laugh. I was hurt first. The words landed hard. He deserved them. Every one. Grace looked away and continued. I wanted to tell you that night. I really did. I waited for you to come home. I had the test in a little white box. I put it in the top drawer of the nightstand because I thought maybe after dinner, maybe when it was quiet I could tell you. Nathan remembered that night. Or pieces of it. A late meeting. A call from his mother, coming home after midnight. Grace already in bed turned away from him. He had thought she was asleep. She had been awake. Waiting. I was scared, Grace said. But I was happy too. For a few hours I let myself be happy. Her hand moved slowly over her stomach. She was so tiny then. Just a secret. Just mine. Nathan looked up sharply. Grace froze. A small mistake. A truth slipped loose. Nathan's eyes filled before he could stop them. A girl, he asked. Grace swallowed. Her face tightened like she regretted giving him even that much. Yes, she said. A girl. Nathan lowered his head. A daughter. He had a daughter. Somewhere between grief and awe something inside him cracked so deeply he almost could not sit upright. Grace did not comfort him. She had spent too long needing comfort herself. The next morning she said you left early. Nathan closed his eyes. I remember. Your mother came at 8:15. The exact time struck him. Not around 8. Not sometime that morning. Bayou. The kind of time burned into memory because life split open there. She had a key, Grace continued. She didn't knock. She walked in like she owned the house. Nathan's hands tightened on his knees. Grace stared at the table but her eyes were no longer seeing the break room. She was back there. Back in the kitchen. Back in the house where she should have been safe. I was making tea, she said. Ginger tea. I was nauseous and I thought maybe it would help. She saw the pregnancy test box on the counter. Nathan whispered. You left it out. I thought I was alone. His jaw clenched. Grace's voice grew smaller. She picked it up. She looked at it for a long time. Then she looked at me and said, absolutely not. Nathan stared at her. Grace gave a faint humorless smile. That was the first thing she said. Not congratulations. Not are you okay. Not does Nathan know. Just absolutely not. Nathan's face hardened. Grace continued. I told her it was true. I told her I was going to tell you. I thought maybe. She paused, her eyes shining. I thought maybe the baby would change things. With my mother. With all of it, Grace said. The dinners. The comments. The way she looked at me like I was a stain on the family name. I thought maybe once there was a baby she would stop seeing me as an outsider. Nathan felt shame burn through him. Because he had seen those looks. He had heard those comments. Not all of them. Enough. Enough to know Grace had not imagined it. Enough to know he had chosen comfort over confrontation. What did she do, he asked. Grace's fingers curled against the table. She laughed. Nathan's eyes lifted. Grace nodded slowly. Not loud. Just this little laugh. Like I was stupid. Like I had said something childish. She drew in another breath. She said no child of yours would be raised by someone like me. Nathan's voice dropped. Someone like you? Grace looked at him. You know what she meant? He did. That was the worst part. He knew. Grace had grown up without wealth. Without a famous last name. Without a father who sat on boards or a mother whose pearls could silence a room. She had worked through college. Shared apartments. Counted dollars. Stretched groceries. Margaret Whittaker had never forgiven her for it. She said she had lawyers, Grace went on. The best ones. She said she had judges who owed her favors, doctors who would testify, friends in family court, people who could make me look unstable before I even opened my mouth. Nathan felt the blood drain from his face. No. Grace leaned forward slightly. Yes. The word was not angry. It was exhausted. She said if I stayed, she would make sure I lost my daughter before I ever got to hold her. She said no court would believe a woman like me over a family like yours. Nathan stood so suddenly the chair scraped backward across the floor. Grace flinched. He froze. There it was again. That flash of fear. That instinct. He forced himself still. Then slowly, carefully he sat back down. I'm sorry, he said, voice rough. I'm sorry. Grace's eyes were wet now. She knew exactly what to say, Grace whispered. She knew every fear I had. That I didn't have money. That I didn't have family powerful enough to fight her. That people already thought I married you for your name. She said if I tried to tell you, she would say I was lying. Nathan looked at her. Grace's mouth trembled. And I wasn't sure you would believe me. That sentence did not land like a slap. It landed like a verdict. Nathan wanted to deny it. He wanted to say, of course I would have believed you. But the words would not come. Because both of them knew the truth. Back then, if Margaret had stood in his office wearing pearls in outrage, if she had said Grace was unstable, dramatic, manipulative, Nathan would have hesitated. Maybe only for a second. But for a terrified pregnant woman, a second would have been enough. Grace saw the answer in his silence. She nodded once, small and broken. That's why I left. Nathan bowed his head. Grace kept going now because once the truth began there was no clean way to stop it. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I didn't leave because I wanted to punish you. I didn't leave because there was someone else. Her voice cracked. I left because your mother made me believe that if I stayed I would lose my baby. Nathan covered his mouth with one hand. He could see it now. Grace in their kitchen. Pregnancy test on the counter. Margaret standing there like a judge. Threats dressed as concern. Power used like a weapon. And Grace alone with no one to protect her. No one asked her if she was scared. No one held her hand. No one told her she would not have to fight alone. So she ran. Not from him. For their child. Grace wiped her face quickly. I packed nothing because I was afraid she would come back. I took my purse, my phone, and the cash I had in the drawer. I turned my phone off because she said you could track it. I didn't use my cards because everything had your name connected to it. I went to a bus station and paid in cash. Nathan's voice broke. Where did you go? Across the city first. Then farther. Anywhere cheap. Anywhere no one knew me. You were pregnant. I know. You were alone. I know. He leaned forward, pain written across his face. Grace, you should have called me. Her eyes sharpened through the tears. And said what, Nathan, your mother threatened to steal our child. Would you have left your meeting? Would you have believed me before calling her? Would you have chosen me before asking for proof? He could not answer. Grace looked down. That's what I thought. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Deserved. Outside the break room, footsteps passed. Someone laughed down the corridor. Life kept moving, careless and loud. Inside, Nathan Whittaker sat across from the woman he had promised to protect and understood that his failure had not been loud. It had been quiet. 1,000 quiet moments. 1,000 times he had let Margaret speak over Grace. 1,000 times he had told himself it was easier not to make a scene, and now his wife had spent 8 months hiding behind locked doors, cleaning floors and carrying their daughter under a heart full of fear. Grace touched her belly again. She's all I had, she whispered. So I did what I had to do. Nathan looked at her hand. Then at her face. And for the first time that night he did not ask why she disappeared. He understood. Grace had not abandoned their marriage. She had been cornered. Threatened. Forced to choose between staying as his wife and surviving as her child's mother. And she chose the child. No one asked her to. No one thanked her. She just did it. Nathan did not try to defend himself. That was the first thing Grace noticed. For years he had always had an explanation ready. A meeting ran late. His mother did not mean it that way. The dinner was important. The comment sounded worse than it was. He had built his life out of answers. Strong answers. Clean answers. Answers that made investors trust him and employees follow him and rooms go quiet when he spoke. But now in that small hotel break room, Nathan Whitaker had nothing. No explanation. No excuse. No clean sentence that could cover the damage. He sat across from his wife with his elbows on his knees, his head lowered, one hand pressed over his mouth like he was trying to hold himself together. The buzzing fluorescent light made his face look older, harder, broken in a way Grace had never seen before. And still she did not move toward him. She could not. Not yet. Her truth had finally left her body and now it sat between them like shattered glass. Nathan looked up slowly. His eyes were wet. "I failed you," he said. Grace looked away. Those 3 words should have felt good. They should have brought relief. After 8 months of sleeping in cheap rooms, counting dollars, hiding from phone calls, scrubbing floors with swollen feet, those words should have landed like justice. But they did not. They only made her tired. Because failure was easy to name after the damage was done. "Nathan," she whispered, "I don't have the strength to make you feel better." He flinched. Not because she was cruel. Because she was right. He nodded once slowly. "I'm not asking you to." Grace gave a faint laugh, but there was no humor in it. "You always asked without asking." That cut him deeper than anger would have. Nathan's eyes stayed on her face. Grace continued, quiet now, almost too tired to speak. "When your mother corrected me at dinners, I looked at you. Every time. I waited for you to say something." Nathan closed his eyes. He remembered. God help him, he remembered. A Thanksgiving dinner 2 years ago. Margaret smiling across the table while Grace reached for the wrong fork. "Sweetheart," Margaret had said, "that one is for salad. But I suppose no one taught you these things." The table had gone still. Grace had looked at Nathan. Just once. A quick look. A plea. Nathan had cleared his throat and changed the subject. He had called it keeping peace. Now he saw what it really was. Cowardice in a tailored suit. Grace's voice pulled him back. "When she called my job a hobby, I looked at you." Another memory. Grace had worked at a community clinic, then helping low-income families navigate medical bills. She came home exhausted but alive with purpose. Margaret had laughed over wine. "Isn't that sweet? Grace has a little charity project." Nathan had smiled tightly. Said nothing. "When she told your friends, I was lucky you didn't ask for a prenup, I looked at you." Nathan's stomach turned. That night at the country club. The crystal glasses. The soft piano music. Grace's hand going still around her water glass. His mother's voice light and poisonous. "Some girls win the lottery without buying a ticket." People had laughed because Margaret laughed first. Grace had not. Nathan had told himself it was only a joke. He hated that version of himself now. Grace touched the edge of the table, tracing one old coffee ring with her fingertip. "And when I told you she didn't like me, you said she needed time." Nathan whispered, "I know. You said she was protective." "I know. You said she was from a different generation." "I know." Grace looked at him then. Her eyes were red but steady. "No, Nathan. You didn't know. You chose not to know." The words landed clean. No shouting. No drama. Just truth. And truth was heavier than rage. Nathan bowed his head. For the first time he saw the whole pattern. Not just the morning Margaret threatened Grace. Not just the pregnancy. Not just the disappearance. The foundation had been cracking for years. Small insults. Small silences. Small betrayals wrapped in polite manners and family tradition. He had not pushed Grace out the door himself. But he had left the door unguarded. And when Margaret came through it, Grace had been alone. "I thought I was being fair," Nathan said, his voice rough. Grace's mouth tightened. Fair to who? He had no answer. She already knew that. "To my mother," he admitted after a long silence. "To the company. To appearances. To everyone except you." Grace looked down. A tear fell onto the table. She wiped it away immediately. Nathan saw the motion and hated himself for every time she had learned to hide her pain quickly. "I told myself you were strong," he said. "So, I let you carry things I should have stopped." Grace's hand rested on her stomach. "I had to be strong. You left me no other choice." There it was again. Not accusation. History. Nathan stared at the floor between his shoes. He was a man who had spent years building towers out of steel and stone. He knew load-bearing walls. He knew pressure. He knew what happened when weight was placed where it did not belong. And somehow, in his own marriage, he had placed all the weight on Grace. His mother's pride. His family's expectations. His public image. His need to avoid conflict. Grace had carried it until she could not. Then she carried their child and ran. Nathan's voice dropped lower. "I should have protected you." Grace's eyes closed. That sentence did something to her. It did not heal. It did not erase. But it reached a place in her that had been waiting a long time to hear it. Nathan kept going. On our wedding day I stood in front of everyone and promised I would put you first. Grace opened her eyes. He looked directly at her now. I didn't. The honesty was brutal. No decoration. No escape. I let my mother stand too close to our marriage. I let her speak to you in ways no one should have spoken to you. I let her make you feel like a guest in your own home. Grace's lips trembled. Nathan's eyes filled again. And when you disappeared, I let myself believe the easiest story. That you left, that you hurt me. That I was the victim. He shook his head slowly. But you were the one being hunted. You were the one carrying our baby. You were the one with no money, no doctor, no safety, and I was sitting in offices feeling sorry for myself. Grace whispered. You didn't know. Nathan's answer came fast. I should have. The room went quiet. That was the difference. Before Nathan would have grabbed at that excuse. He did not know. No one told him. Grace left without explaining. But now he pushed the excuse away before it could protect him. I should have known because you were my wife, he said. I should have known because you changed when my mother entered a room. I should have known because your smile got smaller every year and I called it stress. Grace covered her mouth. Her shoulders shook once. Nathan did not move. He wanted to hold her so badly it hurt. But wanting was not permission. So he stayed in his chair. His hands open. Still. Waiting. Grace breathed through the emotion one shaky breath after another. Then she said, I kept hoping you would choose me before there was a crisis. Nathan's face crumpled. Just for a second. Then he forced himself to stay present to hear it, to take it. I know, he whispered. No, Grace said, her voice breaking. You chose me when it was romantic. When it was easy. When it made you feel brave. But when choosing me meant disappointing her, she stopped. Nathan finished it for her. I chose silence. Grace nodded. That small nod broke him more than screaming could have. Because it was tired. So tired. Nathan leaned back, staring at the ceiling. A harsh little laugh escaped him. Not amusement. Disgust. I built a company from nothing, he said. I fought banks, I fought contractors. I fought men twice my size who tried to cheat me. He looked at her. And I was afraid of my mother's disapproval. Grace did not soften. Not yet. But something in her eyes shifted. Nathan saw it. Not forgiveness. Recognition. A man finally looking at the right wound. She knew that, Grace said. Yes, Nathan whispered. She did. Margaret had known exactly where he was weak. She knew he wanted to be a good son. She knew he hated scenes. She knew he would question Grace before he questioned the woman who raised him. And she had used that knowledge like a weapon. Against Grace. Against their daughter. Against the family Nathan had promised to build. He pressed his palms against his knees. I can't undo 8 months, he said. Grace looked at him. You can't? The answer was immediate. Honest. Necessary. Nathan nodded. I know. You can't give me back the first appointment. His eyes lowered. No. You can't give me back the nights I was sick and scared. No. You can't give me back the moment I heard her heartbeat alone in a free clinic while a nurse asked if anyone was coming for me. Nathan's mouth opened but no sound came. Grace's eyes shone. I said no. The word no seemed to echo inside him. No one coming. No husband. No family. No hand to hold. Nathan bent forward as if the sentence had physically struck him. Grace watched him carefully. A small part of her wanted him to hurt. Not forever. Just enough to understand. Another part hated seeing him like this. That was the cruelest thing. Love did not vanish just because trust was broken. Sometimes love stayed bruised and breathing in the same room as grief. Nathan lifted his face. I deserve that, he said. Grace shook her head slowly. This isn't about what you deserve. No, he said. It's about what you needed. She stared at him. And I wasn't there. The words hung there. Plain. Final. Nathan stood carefully, this time slowly enough that Grace did not flinch. He walked to the far wall, then stopped, not because he wanted distance but because if he stayed sitting across from her he might break completely and make his pain the center of the room. He would not do that. Not tonight. He turned back to her. I believed being a provider was enough, he said. The house. The money. The security. I thought if I built walls high enough that meant I had protected you. Grace looked around the tiny break room. And I ended up here. Nathan nodded. The shame in his face was raw. Yes. A long silence followed. Then Grace spoke softly. I didn't want to hate you. Nathan looked at her. I tried. Some nights I wanted to. It would have been easier. But then she would kick. Her hand moved over her belly. And I would think about how you used to talk about being a father. How you said you wanted to teach our kid to ride a bike, how you wanted pancakes on Saturday mornings. Nathan's eyes filled again. Grace swallowed. And I would cry because I missed the man I thought would protect us. Nathan whispered, I want to be that man. Grace looked at him for a long time. The old Nathan would have expected that sentence to matter. The new one born in that room under fluorescent lights knew it was only a beginning. Grace's answer was quiet. Then stop wanting and start choosing. Nathan nodded. Once. Slowly. Like a vow. I will. Grace did not smile. She did not forgive him. She did not fall into his arms. She simply sat there exhausted and pregnant and still unsure whether the man in front of her could become the husband he had promised to be. But Nathan understood now. His regret was not enough. His tears were not enough. His love was not enough. For 8 months Grace had survived on action. Now he would have to prove himself the same way. No speeches. No excuse. No more silence. He had failed her quietly. Now he would have to protect her loudly. For a long moment Grace said nothing. Then she looked down at her hands. Hands that had once worn a wedding ring. Hands that had once arranged flowers in a bright kitchen while Nathan teased her about making every room feel alive. Now those hands were rough. Chapped. Marked with tiny cuts from cleaning chemicals and cheap soap. Nathan saw them. Grace saw him seeing them. And she pulled them into her lap. Not from shame exactly. From habit? I wasn't just hiding, she said. Nathan stayed still. The chair beneath him creaked once but he did not move closer. He had learned in the hardest way possible that love without patience could feel like pressure. Grace took a slow breath. I was trying to come back. Nathan blinked. The words hit him strangely. Come back. For 8 months he had imagined every version of her disappearance. That she had left forever. That she hated him. That she had started over somewhere with a new name and a locked door. But Grace had been trying to come back. Not as a begging wife. Not as a frightened woman with no proof. As a mother ready to fight. What do you mean? He asked quietly. Grace looked toward the break room door. A hotel worker passed outside pushing a cart stacked with white towels. The wheels squeaked. The sound faded. Only then did she speak. I knew your mother would not stop if I came back empty-handed. Nathan's jaw tightened. Grace nodded as if she could feel his anger rising. She had money, lawyers, connections, a family name people respected before they even heard the facts. I had nothing but my word. Nathan's voice broke. Your word should have been enough. Grace looked at him. It wasn't. He had no answer. Because she was right. Back then her word had not been enough to protect her. Not from Margaret. Not from doubt. Not from the silence Nathan had mistaken for peace. Grace leaned back slowly, one hand pressing against her lower back. Pain flashed across her face but she swallowed it down. I found a room on the east side first, she said. A place above a laundromat. One window. No real heat. The bathroom was down the hall shared with 6 other tenants. Nathan looked stricken. Grace continued before he could interrupt. The first night I slept in my coat. I kept a chair pushed under the doorknob. Every noise woke me up. Every footstep outside the room made me think she had found me. She wouldn't have. Grace's eyes sharpened. Nathan stopped. That was the old instinct. Defend his mother first. He heard it now. He hated it. Grace watched him realize it. Then she continued. I didn't know what she would do. That was the point. She made sure I didn't know. She made sure I felt small enough to believe anything was possible. Nathan lowered his eyes. Grace touched her stomach. At first I thought I only needed a few weeks. Find a legal aid office. Talk to someone. Figure out how to protect the baby. But every door had a wait list. Every appointment asked for paperwork. Proof of income. Proof of address. Medical records. Marriage documents. She gave a tired laugh. I had a purse, $380 and 1 pair of shoes. The shoes. Nathan looked down. The worn inner heel. The left worse than the right. He remembered buying them for her during a weekend trip to Portland. It had rained the whole day. Grace had laughed because her old shoes leaked, so Nathan had pulled her into a little shop and insisted she pick any pair she wanted. She had chosen the practical ones. Comfort matters, she had said. Now those same shoes had carried her through 8 months of fear. Grace followed his gaze. I wore them everywhere, she said. To interviews. To clinics. To shelters when the room got too cold. To the bus stop before sunrise. Nathan swallowed hard. What jobs? Grace's face changed. Not embarrassment. Exhaustion. Whatever I could get paid for in cash at first. Laundry folding, dishwashing, cleaning offices after midnight. Then a diner took me for breakfast shifts until my stomach got too big and the manager said customers were uncomfortable watching me carry plates. Nathan's hands curled into fists. Grace noticed. Don't do that, she said. What? Get angry now. It doesn't help what happened then. His hands relaxed slowly. I'm sorry. I know. But she did not say it gently. She said it like a fact that did not fix anything. I worked at a bakery for 11 days, Grace said. They paid under the table. I stood near the ovens for 6 hours at a time. It was 90 degrees in that kitchen. Sometimes hotter. I nearly passed out twice. Nathan closed his eyes. Grace kept going. I cleaned apartments. I sorted donated clothes at a thrift store. I answered phones for a moving company until they found out I didn't have a permanent address. I took night shifts at a 24-hour laundromat because the owner let me sit down between customers. Her voice thinned on the last sentence. I was so tired, Nathan. The words were simple. That made them worse. Nathan looked at her, and for the first time he did not see only the tragedy of it. He saw the endurance. The stubborn, aching, impossible strength. Grace had not collapsed. She had not given up. She had built a survival plan out of scraps. One shift. $1. One bus ride. One breath. At a time. I ate whatever was cheap, she said. Peanut butter. Crackers. Bananas when they were bruised and marked down. Sometimes soup from the church on 4th Street. I told myself the baby was taking what she needed first. Nathan's face twisted. Grace's eyes softened for half a second, then hardened again. I know what you're thinking. No, you don't. You're thinking you would have paid for everything. I would have. And that is exactly why I couldn't ask. Nathan stared at her. Grace leaned forward carefully. Your money was connected to your mother. Your house. Your accounts. Your world. I needed something that was mine. Something she couldn't freeze, twist, question, or take. Nathan absorbed that. Slowly. Painfully. Grace had not been punishing him by refusing his help. She had been trying to stand somewhere Margaret could not reach. I started saving, she said, every dollar I could. I kept the cash in a coffee can behind a loose panel under the sink. At night I counted it on the bed. $20. 40. 75. Some nights I cried because it felt stupid. Like trying to build a wall with dust. Nathan's voice was barely there. For a lawyer. Grace nodded. A real one. Not just legal aid. Someone who handled custody threats. Someone who would take me seriously when I said a rich woman with influence wanted my child. She reached into the pocket of her red uniform and pulled out a folded piece of paper. The edges were soft from being handled too many times. She placed it on the table. Nathan looked at it. A business card. Linda Carver, family law attorney. I met her 2 weeks ago, Grace said. At a free clinic. She volunteers there on Thursdays. I waited 4 hours to talk to her for 12 minutes. Nathan picked up the card like it might break. She believed you. Grace's eyes filled. Yes. The word trembled. She said threats like that matter. She said if I could document everything, show work history, medical efforts, living arrangements, savings, witnesses, anything, then I had a case. She told me not to go back until I was ready. Nathan looked from the card to Grace. And you were getting ready? I was 9 days away. His brow furrowed. Grace gave a small nod. 9 days, Nathan. I had an appointment next Wednesday. I had almost enough for the retainer. Not all of it, but enough that she agreed to start. I had statements from the clinic. Letters from 2 women at the rooming house. Pay records from the hotel. She looked around the staff room. This job was the last piece. Nathan's eyes moved to the uniform. Grace followed his gaze. The Grand Harbor pays better than the diner. Not much, but better. And they give printed pay stubs. I needed those. I needed to show I was employed. Stable. Responsible. The word stable cracked between them. Because that was the word Margaret would have tried to steal from her. Grace had been cleaning floors at midnight, pregnant and swollen, not because she had fallen. Because she was building evidence. Because she was building a case. Because she was building a future where no one could say she was helpless. Nathan sat back slowly. The full weight of it settled over him. You weren't gone forever, he said. Grace shook her head. No. I was coming back. But I wanted to walk in with more than fear. I wanted a lawyer beside me. I wanted proof in my hands. I wanted your mother to look at me and understand I was not the same woman she scared out of that kitchen. Her voice broke then. Just slightly. I wanted you to understand it too. Nathan's eyes burned. Grace wiped her cheek quickly. I kept imagining it. Walking into your office. Putting the papers down. Telling you everything. Not begging you to believe me. Showing you why you had to. Nathan whispered. Grace. She shook her head. I was so close. That was the cruelest part. Not that she had suffered. Not even that she had suffered alone. But that she had nearly made it. 9 days. 9 days from returning with proof. 9 days from standing on her own feet in front of the man who should have stood beside her from the beginning. Nathan looked at the business card again, then at Grace. For the first time, his guilt was joined by something else. Respect. Deep, heavy, overdue. You did all of that, he said. Grace looked tired enough to disappear into the chair. I had to. No one carried her. No one cleared the path. No one applauded. She worked. She saved. She endured. She prepared. She protected their daughter in a city that did not care how tired she was. Nathan lowered the card to the table. His voice came out rough. You are the strongest person I have ever known. Grace looked away. Strong is what people call you when they don't want to admit you were abandoned. The sentence hit the room hard. Nathan nodded slowly. I won't call it strength to avoid calling it what it was. Grace looked back at him. He held her gaze. You were abandoned. Her lips trembled. And you survived anyway. This time Grace did not wipe the tear away fast enough. It slipped down her cheek, catching the fluorescent light. Nathan stayed still. He let her cry without trying to own the moment. Without trying to fix it with one sentence. Grace breathed in uneven and shallow. I didn't want our daughter born into fear, she whispered. That was all I wanted. One safe place. One chance. Nathan looked at her stomach. Then at the woman who had fought her way through 8 months of darkness to give that child a chance. Outside, the hotel kept moving. Guests laughing. Elevators opening. Silverware chiming in the dining room. But in that break room, Nathan understood the truth. Grace had not returned as a broken woman. She had returned as a mother who had been forced to become her own army. And she was 9 days from victory when he found her with a mop in her hands. Nathan looked at Grace across the little break room table, and for the first time in 8 months he did not see a mystery. He saw a woman who had been forced to fight a war alone. A war inside cheap rooms. A war at bus stops before sunrise. A war under fluorescent lights with swollen feet, empty pockets, and a child moving beneath her ribs. And something in him finally stopped asking for permission to be the man he should have been all along. He stood slowly. Not fast. Not like a man taking control of the room. Like a man making sure she did not have to be afraid of him. Grace watched every movement. Her fingers rested on the edge of the table. Her body was tired, but her eyes stayed alert. She had lived too long by reading danger before it arrived. Nathan reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. Grace stiffened. Who are you calling? She asked. My doctor. Her face tightened. Nathan? Not for control, he said quickly. For care. That stopped her. He held her eyes. You said you haven't had proper prenatal care. You said the free clinic checked what they could. But you're 9 months pregnant, Grace. You had pain in the hallway. You're exhausted. You've been standing for hours. I can't afford. I'm not asking you to afford anything. Her jaw hardened. He caught himself. Wrong words. Too close to the old Nathan. He lowered his voice. I'm asking if you will let me make one phone call to someone who can check on you and our daughter tonight. You can say no. Grace stared at him. The word "our" hung between them. Our daughter. Not his. Not hers. Theirs. Her hand moved over her belly. The baby shifted beneath her palm. A small movement invisible to Nathan but powerful enough to change Grace's face for half a second. Fear softened into something else. Not trust. Not yet. But fatigue. Deep, bone-heavy fatigue. I don't want a hospital, unless I need one, she said. I don't want questions. I don't want people treating me like I did something wrong. They won't? You don't know that. Nathan nodded once. You're right. I don't. But Dr. Helen Parker has known me for 15 years. She delivers half the babies in this county. She'll come to the house privately if I ask. Grace looked away. The house. That word was not safe anymore. Nathan saw it immediately. Or anywhere else, he said. A hotel room. A clinic. A private office. You choose. Grace's eyes returned to him. That was new. Choice. She had been living without it for so long that even the shape of it seemed strange. Nathan unlocked his phone but did not dial. He waited. Grace breathed in slowly. Her hand pressed against her lower back again. She tried to hide the wince. He saw it. She saw him see it. This time she did not deny it. Call her, Grace whispered. Nathan nodded. No speech. No dramatic promise. Just action. He pressed the number. The phone rang twice. A woman answered, calm and alert. Helen, it's Nathan Whitaker. A pause. Then the doctor's voice changed. Nathan, is everything all right? No, he said. Grace looked down. Nathan's grip tightened around the phone. My wife is with me. She is nearly 9 months pregnant. She's had very limited prenatal care. She had abdominal pain about 20 minutes ago and she's been working on her feet all evening. Grace closed her eyes. Hearing the truth said plainly made it more real. Dr. Parker's voice became crisp. Professional, is she bleeding? Nathan looked at Grace. Grace shook her head. No bleeding, he said. Contractions? Grace hesitated. Nathan did not answer for her. Grace whispered, I don't know. Maybe. They come and go. Nathan repeated it. Dr. Parker asked a few more questions. How far apart? How long? Dizziness. Swelling? Baby movement? Grace answered quietly. No exaggeration. No drama. Just facts from a woman who had been pretending facts did not matter because there was no one safe to tell. Finally Nathan said, can you come tonight? Another pause. Yes, Dr. Parker said. I'll meet you at your home in 40 minutes. If anything changes before then you go straight to the ER. No debate. Nathan looked at Grace when he answered. No debache. He ended the call. For a few seconds neither of them spoke. Then Grace said, your mother has a key. Nathan's face changed. Not surprise. Decision. She had a key. Grace studied him. He opened his phone again and made another call. Mark, he said when the man answered. I need all locks changed at the house tonight. Front door, garage, entry, side door, guest house, office wing, every access code wiped. Every remote reset. Grace stared at him. Nathan listened. Then his voice hardened. I don't care what it costs. I don't care who has to be woken up. Send a crew now. A pause. No, my mother is not to receive a copy. Another pause. Nathan's jaw tightened. Because I said so. Grace's eyes filled but she blinked fast. This was not a grand apology. This was a door closing. A real one. A lock turning against the woman who had terrified her. Nathan ended the call. Then he sent a text to his head of security. His thumbs moved quickly. Grace watched him. What are you doing now? Removing her from every access list connected to me. Grace's lips parted. The office. The house. The account she could view through family administration. The charitable foundation board. Anything with your name, my name, or our child's future attached to it. Grace looked stunned. Nathan? He looked up. She threatened you with power, he said. So, I'm taking her power away from anything that touches you. A tear slipped down Grace's cheek. She turned her face but he saw it. He did not reach for her. He let her keep her space. A knock came at the break room door. Mr. Lawson stood there, anxious, twisting his hands in front of him. Mrs. Miller, he said, then glanced at Nathan. Mr. Whitaker. I apologize, but we do need to know whether you'll be returning to your shift tonight. Grace began to push herself up. Nathan's head turned. No. The word was quiet. But it had weight. Grace froze halfway out of the chair. Mr. Lawson blinked. Excuse me. Nathan stood fully now. She is not finishing this shift. Grace shot him a look. Nathan turned to her immediately. Unless you want to, he said. That mattered? Grace looked at the manager. Then at the mop bucket visible through the open door. Then at the floor. Her pride fought her exhaustion. Her exhaustion won by an inch. I can't, she whispered. Nathan nodded once and turned back to Mr. Lawson. She's leaving. Mr. Lawson's eyes flicked toward Grace. Of course. We can discuss scheduling tomorrow. No, Nathan said. You can discuss her pay tonight. She gets everything owed. Full shift. Any overtime. And a written record of employment. Mr. Lawson straightened. That may not be. Nathan stepped closer. Not threatening. Not loud. But the room changed. Mr. Lawson, my wife has been working here while 9 months pregnant. I assume your records will show whether proper accommodations were offered. The manager's face drained slightly. Grace looked at Nathan startled. He continued. I'm not here to punish your hotel. I'm here to take her home safely. Do the right thing now. Mr. Lawson swallowed. Yes, sir. Grace looked down at her lap. Home. The word hurt. But it also pulled at something she had tried to bury. Nathan looked back at her. We don't have to go to the house, he said. I know what that place means now. We can go anywhere you feel safe. Grace was quiet for a long time. The baby moved again. She pressed both hands to her belly and closed her eyes. I don't want to run anymore, she whispered. Nathan's face softened. Grace opened her eyes. But I don't know how to go back there. Then we don't call it going back, Nathan said. We call it starting over. One night at a time. She searched his face. Looking for the old hesitation. The old need to soften everything for Margaret. The old man who waited too long. She did not find him. Not completely. Not yet. But something was different. His grief was still there. His guilt too. But under it there was steel. Not the steel he used in business. Something quieter. Better. A man finally standing in the right doorway. Grace tried to rise again and this time Nathan did not touch her. He only moved the chair back with his foot so she had room. She stood slowly. Pain crossed her face. He saw it. "Can I help?" he asked. Grace looked at his offered hand. Not reaching. Just open. Waiting. Her breathing changed. For a second Nathan thought she would refuse. Then she placed her hand in his. Lightly. Barely. But it was there. His fingers closed around hers with careful gentleness, like holding something bruised and precious. Grace did not pull away. That small mercy nearly broke him. They walked out through the service corridor together. The gray walls. The buzzing lights. The smell of bleach. The world she had survived in. At the staff exit, Grace stopped beside her mop bucket. Her name tag still clipped to her uniform. Grace M. She touched it once. Then unclipped it. Nathan watched as she set it on the metal shelf by the door. No speech. No applause. Just a woman putting down one piece of the life she had been forced to live. Outside the night air was cold. Grace shivered. Nathan took off his coat. He held it out, waiting. She looked at him. Then she let him place it over her shoulders. The coat swallowed her. Warm. Heavy. Safe enough for the moment. His driver pulled the black SUV to the curb. Nathan opened the back door, but Grace hesitated. "If she's there," Grace said. "She won't be. If she comes, she'll be turned away. If she calls you?" Nathan looked straight at her. "I won't answer until you and our daughter are safe." Grace stared at him for a long second. Then she nodded. Just once. She climbed into the car carefully, one hand on the door frame, one on her stomach. Nathan got in beside her, leaving space between them. The city lights slid over the windows as the SUV pulled away from the hotel. Grace leaned her head back and closed her eyes. For the first time that night her hands stopped shaking. Nathan looked at her in the dim light. He wanted to promise everything. He wanted to swear he would fix all of it. But he knew better now. Promises had failed her before. So he made only one. Soft. Plain. Almost a whisper. "Tonight you rest. I'll stand guard." Grace did not open her eyes. But after a moment, her hand moved across the seat. Not far. Just enough. Nathan looked down. Then he placed his hand beside hers. Their fingers did not fully lace together. Not yet. But they touched. And for the first time in 8 months, Grace Miller was not walking alone. The SUV moved through the quiet city streets, carrying two people who had once shared a home but now sat like strangers, learning how to breathe beside each other again. Grace leaned against the window, Nathan's coat wrapped around her shoulders. Her eyes were closed, but she was not asleep. Not yet. For 8 months sleep had been a risk. Trust had been a luxury. Rest had been something other women had. Nathan looked at her swollen hands, her tired face, the life moving inside her. And he understood. This was not a story about money. It was not about a mansion, a family name, or a man trying to win back his wife with one grand gesture. It was about truth. It was about a woman who was pushed into the dark and still protected her child with everything she had. It was about a man who finally saw that silence can wound just as deeply as betrayal. And it was about the painful road back, not through promises but through action. Because love is not proven when life is easy. Love is proven when standing beside someone costs you something. Never let pride, family pressure, or fear of conflict make you silent when someone you love is being hurt. Silence may feel peaceful in the moment, but to the person suffering it can feel like abandonment. Real love protects. Real love listens. Real love chooses the truth even when the truth breaks your heart. And sometimes the person who looks broken is actually the strongest one in the room. If this story touched your heart, share in the comments. Have you ever had to stand alone before someone finally believed you? And don't forget to subscribe, because the next part of Grace and Nathan's story may change everything.